Integers, the product of integers. Let us explore. Remember to notice a pattern, ask yourself why does this happen, and then see if you can deduce a rule. Two groups of 3 means 3 plus 3, and that is 6. Let's follow the pattern. Therefore, two groups of 0 is 0. If we follow the pattern, then two groups of -1 must be -2. Do you notice it's a positive number times a negative number is equal to a negative number? And two groups of -3 is -6. Also remember that 1 is the identity element of multiplication. That is why 2 times 1 is 2. So we've noticed that a positive number multiplied by a negative number is negative, or the product of a positive and a negative number is negative. Let's try to understand why a negative number multiplied by a negative number is equal to a positive number. In the first step, we know now that a negative number multiplied by a positive number is negative. So if we follow the pattern, do you then see that a -3 multiplied by a -1 is positive 3? And therefore, -3 times -2 must be 6, and the product of -3 and -3 must be 9. So we've proved by using a pattern that a negative multiplied by a negative number is a positive number. We can use other methods as well. So two groups of 3 is 6. On the number line, it's 3 plus 3. That's the same as 2 times 3, or the product of 2 and 3. So in words, we can say 2 times 3, or the product of 2 and 3, or two groups of 3, or even 2 multiplied by 3. And that gives us 6 little positive dragons, two groups of 3. But what about two groups of -3? Let's say the blue dragons represent negatives. Then that will be -6. And we know a positive number times a negative number will be negative, because we've got -3 and another -3, which is -6. -3 plus another -3 is -6. We can write it as 2 multiplied by -3, or we can even use the commutative property and say 3 times -2. So in words, -3 times 2, or the product of -3 and 2, or 2 multiplied by -3. In this case, since there are no brackets around the -2, I would rather say subtract two groups of -3, and that is positive 6. Why? Because two groups of -3 is -6, but if we subtract a -6, it will become a positive 6. So we can read it as two groups of -3, we subtract a -6, so we add the additive inverse, and it's 6. We subtract two groups of -3. So to subtract two groups of -3 is the same as adding two groups of 3. Subtract the product of 2 and -3, subtract 2 times -3. So if there are no brackets around the 2, we tend to say two groups of 3 is 6, and two groups of 2 is 4. So a positive number multiplied by a positive number is positive, and a positive number multiplied by a negative number is negative. Here are the different ways of writing it down. We can have brackets around both numbers, or just brackets around the one number. Also just follow the pattern and note that -3 times -3 is positive 9. A fun way to remember it is like this. It is not going to not rain today. Wow, that sounds ugly. However, if we really think about this, both negatives cancel out here, and that sentence suggests that it will in fact rain today. Remember, we don't use the word cancel here, we only use the word cancel if we divide. But what we try to say is that a negative number multiplied by a negative number is a positive number. So something similar is taking place with our multiplying a negative by a negative. So a -2 multiplied by -3 gives us positive 6, as well as subtract two groups of -3. That is equal to 6.